the advice I would like give my younger self is just like enjoy what you're doing. Like enjoy it more, because that's it. And it's you can do it in front of bigger audiences on a bigger stage and have more fans and make more money. But at the end of it, it's like it's you. Like you're just the one there doing it. It's just you. It's just you doing what you want to do, living your life.
Rewind, recap, relive. For over 50 episodes, the revolutionary force in wrestling interview.
Our first guest has about 2 years experience in the wrestling business, mainly on the Canadian independent scene. He's a very captivating persona that we're going to get into soon. Please welcome Rajan Husher.
Hey man, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I'm looking forward to just letting Jimmy talk and I take notes.
That's awesome. I'm so happy to have you here. And yeah, you mentioned our next guest, absolute veteran in the wrestling business, over 24 years in it. He's worked behind the scenes and wrestled both at major companies, WWE, Impact Wrestling, ROH, of course, and most recently an AEW debut. Please welcome the Zombie Princess, Jimmy Jacobs.
All right. Thanks for having me as well. Interesting concept you have here. Uncharted territories for me as far as podcasts go. So here we go.
That's awesome to hear, actually. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, it's usually different. I feel I hear people haven't been on it before. So yeah, we'll see how it turns out. And Jimmy, like I said, most recently made an appearance on Ring of Honor under the AEW name, of course, this time, and you went up against Shane Taylor. And was this your first official appearance with AEW?
I mean, yes, other than, being a judge at for the pure title matches and things like that. I've been working behind the scenes for AEW since the beginning or the middle of June. So I appear there every week, whether people know it or not.
Oh, that's great. And I heard it happened all from a phone call with Bryan Danielson. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Bryan called me at the sort of middle of May, sort of start to pick my brain about the possibility of me coming on board, with the starting Collision, going from 2 shows a week to, I'm sorry, 1 show a week to 2 live shows a week, plus Rampage, plus Ring of Honor. Right. Just a lot to navigate and not a lot to keep track of and a lot to great. So I was happy to come on board.
And now, yeah, there you are back at the same company too, that you have so much history with, Ring of Honor being. How does it feel like to be back there with it now under the AEW banner?
Oh, I don't know how many in-ring appearances you'll see from me. That was just it was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, my hometown, the Van Andel Arena, where I used to, watch Raw and Nitro when I was a kid. So it was more the kindness of Tony's heart. He allowed me to go and play for 5.5 minutes. So I think that's,
yeah.
Never say never, but I don't foresee myself. I'm busy behind the scenes. It's not that I wouldn't like performance on some capacity, but I understand that my value lies a lot behind the scenes, and whatever attention I take away from that, to perform, it seems to be unfair for the role I was brought in for. It was pretty much the same thing at Impact Wrestling when I was managing. I just saw how it split my attention, and it's sort of not fair for where my talents lie. So
no, absolutely. Well, it was really cool though to see you lace up those boots again. I always like to start these at the beginning, and Rajan, I'd love to hear from you first, your journey of what brought you into the wrestling world to where you are now.
I always was a fan as a kid, but I remember the first time understanding it. I think I was 8 years old, and it was Money in the Bank 2011. And in school, everyone's like, "Oh, John Cena, he's awesome, right?" I'm like, "Oh, John Cena's in my brain, oh, he's the best wrestler then, right?" And then I see CM Punk sitting in the middle of the ring, everyone's cheering. I'm like, "What is this?" They're so loud, and the whole match like that, and he beats Cena, he hops the barricade, lifts the belt, blows Vince a kiss, and walks away. And ever since then, I've been just hooked. And in high school, I got the network. And I started off binging all the WrestleManias in order, and then you go through all the Starrcades, all the ECW pay-per-views, and oh my god, because I'm 20, right? So I even missed we were talking earlier, I missed the early Ring of Honor stages. So even discovering Jimmy, online because I remember when I first started wrestling. One of my friends, he's a wrestler from the area. He's like, you know, who you remind me of Jimmy Jacobs. You should watch Jimmy Jacobs. So I did like the whole eyeliner thing too, right? Like nails were black. So I'm like, oh, let me watch this guy, and you see like the Ballad of Lacey. I'm like, this is the artsiest thing I've ever seen. It's great.
You were 8 years old at the Money in Bank where Punk won the title?
8 or 9 around there.
No.
Yeah, math maybe off. I don't know. I'm 20 now.
I,
So
I was at that. I was booked. I was an extra that day
wow.
for that event. I was at CM Punk's house afterwards, where he took the famous picture with the bounce
so cool.
refrigerator. It's like, jeez, hearing that makes me feel old, man.
Well, to give the floor to you, Jimmy, I'd love to hear your journey and if you resonate with anything that Rajan just said.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have our own reason for getting in this. It's funny, our own reasons are hidden from ourselves sometimes. Like we don't know what draws us. We don't know ourselves at all. People don't know themselves at all. I don't know if you know that, but we're all mysteries to ourselves. We think we understand why we follow a path or make choices. You know, on the surface, my brother liked pro wrestling. And so he was an older brother. So I liked pro wrestling sort of by proxy. And then, you know, I kept taking steps forward to do what I wanted to do and wanted to start this. He trained to be a wrestler in 98 and I was hanging around the business then. I was like 14 years old and I started to sort of dip my toes into the water by I would take a video camera and record shows. I would make like crappy websites for guys, like all sorts of stuff just to be involved in any capacity. Then I started refereeing on shows and wrestling on shows. That was it. That's what drew me. What continues to draw me? That's a deep question.
That's a very deep question. Can you expand on the that we don't really understand ourselves, that part? Because I find it interesting the way that you think like that.
Of course, like, man, people that think they know themselves, like they have no idea. Like we have no idea why we do the things we do. We see the surface level of it and we know the stories that we tell ourselves as to why we do it. But people deal on the surface and they don't understand that the surface isn't the cause of what happens in your life. It isn't the cause of your decisions. It's the effect. It's the effect of the beliefs that are the core basis for your actions. And we don't know what we believe. That's the truth. You know, so much of I've found is that our behaviors are predicated on false beliefs that we hide from ourselves. Beliefs like, I'll only have value if I appear to be cool to other people. I only have value based on other people's perception of me. I only deserve happiness if I have success defined by me. It's like all these different things, all these different subconscious beliefs that we have that drive us. We don't understand that those are the basis of our decisions. They just manifest in the way they do, and we think we know what we're up to, but we don't. It's fun. The nature of the self is an interesting idea. Jonah, why'd you start this podcast?
Because I had an interest in wrestling and I wanted to do something involving wrestling and something to pass my time. And I have a good time doing it.
Well, why is that a good time? That doesn't need to be a good time, right?
You're right.
I go out meeting these people. You know what? I don't want to.
It could just be a time. Yeah.
Could be any sort of time. So there's a story that you have inside of that's hidden inside of your perception that tells Jonah this is what makes a good time. And so you don't know the components that make up like, oh, this means a good time, nor do you understand why you even, I should have a good time. Like that's not a given in life that we should have a good time, that life's for good times. You know, you could have a completely different sort of view on, I should be working hard. I should be suffering even. Like we're all just hidden from ourselves, and we think that our reality is is solidified, when it's just compiled with a bunch of stories and beliefs that we have that drive us, and we compile all these idiosyncrasies based on these beliefs, and we call it a personality. It's an interesting, not to get too far in the weeds, but I just went.
No,
let's talk about wrestling. Sorry, yeah, I could talk about.
No, this is great.
This is awesome. This like reminds me of a quote that I really like. It's like, we are like an avatar in the video game that is life. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know who has the controller. No one knows who has the controller. So we gotta like enjoy the ride while we're here. You know what I mean? And like, similar to that, it's like life is like a movie. You know what I mean? Like the dips and the highs make it more interesting. You know what I mean? And like we get like hung up on like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have made that decision. Like, no, you made like the best decision you could with like the knowledge you had at the time. Now that you know better, you're a slightly different person than you were like in that moment. You know what I mean? But you wouldn't be that person without that moment to happen. Sorry, without that moment happening, you wouldn't be the current person you are. You wouldn't have the knowledge you have now. It's awesome, man. I'm really into this. This is
there's a lot of depths there. I mean, the truth is, I think, I mean, insofar as you can start to put your finger on what's going on here, and I'm not sure we can, and we certainly can't in totality, because the human mind just isn't meant to understand, is not made to understand, it can't understand the fundamental mystery of everything. But if you want to call this a video game, and you're experiencing yourself as the avatar, it's like, that's about right. What's the nature of the game? It's like, that's a whole nother question.
Who knows?
Well, Rajan, to pass it back to you, you mentioned earlier, like, stumbling upon the Ballad of Lacey and other things that went into your character. I'd love to get into your character, because like such early on, I feel like you're giving it so much thought just through your Instagram alone. Anyone who scrolls can see that.
So like, I've been training for like 2 years, right? And like, even like people I started training with are way more athletic than I am. You know what I mean? They can do stuff I could never do. It's like earlier on, I realized like, I gotta be like different in a way that plays to my strength, and like in school I was big on like just being creative, like just making stuff. And so like one night I'm up late trying to think like how this character is gonna work. So I always did like the eyeliner, I always did like the nail polish, but I wanted to like add like another layer to it, you know what I mean? So like I stumbled upon this like Jackson Pollock documentary. And I'm like, this is so interesting, because I'm a fan of art, you know what I mean? But I was never a fan of like abstract art, like his style, until I watched that documentary, and I realized what it was. You're not looking at it as if it's like a picture of something. You're looking at it for like what it is. It's paint on a canvas. So like your eye starts at one point and it follows the paint, and you might go there, you might go over there, you might go over there. And Pollock, he was in his garage, he was just walking around on the canvas, pouring paint. So you're following Pollock through the canvas. It's called action painting. I'm like, this is so interesting, right? So the next day I'm like, let me try this. And I did it, right? And it was like super fun. I don't know if you see it, but like that blue one back there is like the first one I ever made.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like there's kind of been like artists before in wrestling, but like no one ever really came out like with the painting, I think. And to me, like the best wrestling characters are like easy to understand on like a surface level if you've like never seen a promo, which like the majority like fans of the indies have not seen any one of my promos. So like if I come out creepy, just like hugging this painting, treating it like it's like the best piece of art, like, oh, you don't understand, you don't see what I see. Like, no, this is just paint on a canvas. You're full of it, you know what I mean? So like there's a reason to like dislike me there. So that's like another layer to like being a heel. And then to dive deeper into it, the character's kind of therapeutic in a way, where like I get to explore ideas that like fascinate me, because like just to pull from like a recent promo, the idea of like suffering equals good art, it fascinates me. Like to use an example, like Kurt Cobain, who's like one of the most famous musicians of all time, but he like, would he still be that if he didn't suffer? But like that ultimately led to him killing himself. So like, does suffering and art, do they go hand in hand, or can you separate them? You don't have to like be like, your problems don't have to like reflect in art. It can be separate. So like I cut promos on like that, something interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy has his hand in his head here. I don't know. But like, just concepts like that, like I don't know. I'm very young, man. I'm like 20. Like just like trying to like work through feelings and stuff. And like the character of Rajan Husher, maybe it's like the way the character is because it's like, angsty, angry. But it's a way for me to like project things that like I have like inside, to, like through the vessel of the character, like twist them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this is like a weirder example, but like I was driving back from practice one night trying to think of promo lines for like this match, and I almost hit like a rabbit. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, how would the character of Rajan Husher react if he did hit the rabbit? You know what I mean? Like he's weirdo, but he sees art in everything, even in wrestling. That's why he's a wrestler. So like he'd like get out of the car, just look at it, take like a mental picture in his brain and try to recreate that picture, but like the canvas wouldn't satisfy him. So like he has to like hurt his opponent in a way where like that becomes the picture he saw on the road. So like I use that in like a promo, but like I swapped out the rabbit with like a dog because it's bigger and people like dogs. I like dogs too. I got so many messages like, "Did you actually hit a dog?" No, 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 no. It's just creative liberties, creative
Oh,
liberties.
I agree with what you said, like with the surface level stuff too. Like if someone's just scrolling, they see you, like it does pop out. Jimmy, do you have any thoughts on the character building and getting there?
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of good stuff in there. I thought it is a intelligent premonition to see that, especially when you're first being introduced to an audience. It's like you need something that's kind of like easily digestible. You need to go, oh, the artist guy, oh, the paint guy, the eyeliner guy. When I first started wrestling, I was 15. I came out in a pogo stick because I thought, well, at the end of the night, they'll remember the pogo stick guy. Like it's just,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
really, really simple. Um, and then what you ultimately want, especially if you're like a sort of a television character, is then when time goes on, there's more depth to the character, right? So it's like there's something easily identifiable on the outside, on the surface, but then I have something underneath the package, right? And the example I sort of love is Mankind, who's this sort of Hannibal Lecter character, who's, it's like, yeah, you get that, you get that he's just like a Hannibal Lecter sort of madman pretty easily. By the way the vignettes were, by the way his music is, by the way he walks out, and the deformity on his ear and this sort of stuff. But you wait a year and he does a sit down interviews with Jim Ross. You go, oh, this is why he's the character that he is, right? And it goes to show too that like you're always playing to two audiences. You're always playing to the audience that is watching for the first time and the audience that knows you. And you have to give proper attention to both. Like much of my career, I just sort of went like, well, we already did this, so then when we do this, we do this, and never gave consideration to the viewer that's coming in for the first time. In Ring of Honor, we had, generally speaking, a loyal fan base, but it was really an idea that I didn't pick up until I started working for WWE and saw that like that is the person who doesn't keep up with the wrestling product is who Vince writes the shows for. Like WWE shows are written for people that don't watch wrestling. That's why there's always a recap. There's always the B-roll. There's so much exposition in the promos going, hey, last week. And like I think he overdid it, but you have to acknowledge that fan base. So when you're creating a character, it's like, yes, let me give something that the fans seeing me for the first time, which is a lot of fans, especially when you're doing independence. It's like you're going to get a lot of that. Like I'm being introduced to this audience for the first time. I'm starting fresh. So what can I give them that they can easily jump on board with me? And then as you continue to work more places, more frequently and gain more of a fan base, like you have substance behind the character, which makes which rewards the people that continue to watch you. So I thought that was all really good stuff, as well as, mentioning, playing to your strengths. I had the exact same experience to go, well, I have this in my life, at least, this sort of like this come to Jesus moment with Gabe Sapolsky right before the Battle of Lacey. I call him up, and we had just started this emo character with me, and I'm like, I call him up. I'm like, dude, I'm struggling here. Like, I'm dying. Like, I need to be put in a story. I need to be put in a program. Like, I can't. I'm not an athlete like Jack Evans or like this amazing wrestler like Bryan Danielson. Like, I need stories. I need a program. He goes, well, stories are nice and gimmicks are good, but the matches sell the DVDs, right? And I was a guy in Ring of Honor where all the athletic people are. He was just like, I'm not that. And it was through the Battle of Lacey that I was able to really catch Gabe's eye to go, oh, there's a niche for this. Like, I have to, there is something for me here. And I used to joke that I was like the only wrestler in Ring of Honor that had homework. Like, after I did the Battle of Lacey, a few months later, Gabe's like, I think we need another music video. It's like, man, look, I know, not a musician, really. Like, I was in a band in high school. I just like I don't really know this. Not like where I can just spit out music videos. But he goes, I think we need a second one. And I go, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. And I would always do these things, and I would say to myself, Samoa Joe's not doing this right now. Like, he's not, at the beach shooting a music video, jumping here to whatever. But that's what I needed to do, and I found my niche sort of doing that, and with the benefit of having an audience like the Ring of Honor fan base that was loyal, which is really what allowed me, I think, to do that. But yeah, all that was good stuff there. There's another thing you said in there. I was looking up. I can't find the name of the book. There's a book that I read years ago per the recommendation of Claudio Castagnoli, I believe. It has something to do with Van Gogh, and the title, I forget. I was looking at Van Gogh book, something, but the case that the book makes is that it was not the like Van Gogh's art did not come from his misery per se, that a more full life, a more like you don't need the suffering for the art. That was the case the book made. Now, with me, it sure gives you something to pull from, doesn't it?
It does, man. It's just like I don't know about you, but like whenever I'm feeling like down, right? That's like the best like either like wrestling spots or like promo lines coming to my brain. And like that's why I like write all this stuff down. And like it's like a double-edged sword, like a give and take, actually, give and take in a way, because like you're feeling down while thinking of this, but when you're actually making it, it's like a very, at least for me, it's a very fun process. You know what I mean? Like you're scratching that like creative itch that I think everybody really has. And like you're making this thing, and like I spend like 8 hours on one promo because like I'm an idiot. I use like a projector for one, and like a projector is a pain to work with, and I bought a cheap one too. So like I was messing with around with that thing for like forever. The actual promo took like 5 minutes, but like the shots I wanted were like so ambitious, and like I work in a very like constricted space. That's like, it's like the basement of my house. So like I make like a set with like all the paintings hanging and like famous art in the background. But literally on the side there's like washing machines. On the other side is like just like the void. So like I gotta get creative with like lighting and all that stuff. But like it's weird, man, because like sadness and stuff brings out that creative part of you. But like then when you actually like make it, it's like a very fulfilling process. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? It's very hard for me to like communicate
Of
this stuff.
course. I mean, I think the what's the saying? The wound is where the light shines through, right? It's like the human spirit that transmutes like pain and suffering and despair into something beautiful. Like that's what, to me, that's like the foundation of the human spirit, and we see that not just through art, but we see that in people's lives, like people who go through like horrific things. If they're able to flip it around, they can transmute it into loving action. And so the thing that was, I mean, you see this in superhero movies too. I mean, this is Batman. This is everything, right?
Yeah.
It's the power of the human spirit. I forget which one you guys said that, like, talking about like movie. Oh, you said early, like,
It was
life,
like
like a movie,
we are
like,
a character in
A
a
video game. Yeah.
the movie. And like a movie works because it's like life, right? It's yes, life is like a movie, but movies are like lives, but just like compressed, because it holds the sort of same pattern as our reality does, as the way we navigate through the world. And certainly to me, to your point, for me personally, and this isn't this way for everybody, but for me, who's in some sense a troubled individual, and have been my whole life, in the sort of existential way. For me, it was about creating. Like that's what this was. That's what pro wrestling was for me, and everything else was secondary. The ideas of like, making money, or like going to WWE, or things like that, while they came into my purview later on in my life, it was about the creation. And in that sense, like, there's no failure. And so, like, when I see people that are young and they have these big goals, and goals are great, but in some sense, like, if you think that you'll find salvation in a WWE contract, or an AEW contract, or an Impact contract even, that's not where salvation lies. It's just not. And the proof is in the fact that, like, how many people have these contracts and they're miserable. So it's a game you play with yourself to go, oh, as soon as this happens, then everything's going to be okay. But if you understand from the basis of this moment that it is the doing of that is it, that is the thing. Like, the contract isn't the thing, the W title isn't the thing, WrestleMania isn't the thing, AEW championship isn't the thing. It's a thing to do, but it's not the thing. The thing to do is what you're doing. It's the thing right in front of you. And I find that so many people in the wrestling business, and in life in general, participate out of a place of lack. And as long as you act out of this idea that the goal is anything other than what you're doing, then you will always perpetuate that. The wanting more perpetuates wanting more. And so the advice I would like give my younger self is just like, enjoy what you're doing. Like, enjoy it more, because that's it. And it's, you can do it in front of bigger audiences, on a bigger stage, and have more fans and make more money. But at the end of it, it's like, it's you. Like, you're just the one there doing it. It's just you. It's just you doing what you want to do, living your life. And no matter where you are, like, that's what you'll find. You'll climb a mountain, you go, I'm almost at the top, but it just keeps going up, and it just keeps going up. And whenever you get to the next summit, it's like, it's just you there, and you can keep climbing. You go, I'm almost there. It's just you there. The basis on which to, for me, gauge things from is just, am I doing what I want right now? Is this the experience I want to be having? And if it's not, why not? And is that something I need to act out differently, or is that my relationship with the experience that's the issue? Which is all to say, yeah, man, it's beautiful when what you want to do is create, and then that becomes the reward in and of itself.
Yeah, man, that was really well said. Yeah, I thought it reminded me of like oh man, I want to say a George Carlin bit, but I might be wrong. But it's like trying to find happiness and like these other things that you're chasing without finding happiness within yourself is like being hungry and like taping sandwiches to the outside of your body. It doesn't help. And like that was really well said, man. Thank you for saying that.
Great advice for life in general, like you said, as well as the wrestling industry. I heard you say you had like an aptitude for storytelling at a very young age when it comes to wrestling. So to someone like you, what does storytelling mean? Or just in general, like with creating, like you're talking about in the wrestling business?
Yeah, I mean, I understood what it was very early on in wrestling. Like I had an aptitude for it, like right away. Like not that I haven't learned plenty along the way and how to execute and finer points and different sort of dramatic presentations of things and different ways to sort of model that and understand that more. But no one needed to tell me a lot about wrestling, like things that I think are like self-evident. Like I only realized this like a couple years ago. Like I thought everyone knew what I knew, and so I didn't understand sort of like why I was even like I had any success in wrestling, to be honest with you. And it was only until like later on I go, oh, the things that are self-evident to me aren't self-evident to everybody. That's why. And it does have to do, I think, with storytelling and dramatic delivery to some degree as well, which is all sort of part of the same thing. When you talk about story, God, like you started to pose the question, I'm like, geez. Because, storytelling, back to sort of what I was mentioning about movies, it's storytelling is the pattern of our experience of reality. That's actually like what it is. And we see that same pattern basically compressed into different media. And when we see it compressed and it matches up properly with us, with reality, if it matches up properly with reality, there's something about it that's in resonance with us that we go, yes, this for some reason, and I can't figure out why am I even drawn to this? And to me, it's because those things map onto reality itself. I mean, it's kind of what Joseph Campbell sort of posited in the idea of the hero's journey and his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, is that there's kind of like one story, and he breaks it down in a certain way with certain sort of beats to the story and shows the universality of it, if that's even a word, of different stories in ancient cultures and how they all sort of map onto this, and how Star Wars maps onto this, and this maps, it all maps on with these beats. Fundamentally, there's one story going on, and that's up down, that's in out, expansion contraction, and it's just dressed up different ways. And if it ends on down, it's a tragedy. If it ends on up, it's a comedy. But more or less, that's what storytelling is. And so that's what matches are. That's what promos are. It's all the same thing, and we see it, right? We see how, like, I would say, like, the basic. I mean, really, really crudely, the basic idea of storytelling is like things are how they are. Something happens, and now there needs to be a resolution for that happening, right? That's really the sort of basic thing. So here we are, and we show the people, I'm a bad guy, you're a good guy, and we do that with various, the way we move our bodies and our simulated combat and our costumes and our music and how we interact with people. And then at some point, once we sort of establish that this is where we're at, then something catastrophic happens, and we call that the heat of the match, when the bad guy is really beating up the good guy. and then the good guy does something about it because the problem that was presented in sort of a scene 2 sort of act 2 sort of way needs to be taken care of, and then there's a resolution at the end where there's a ends on a down or ends on an up, and that's basically storytelling, and that's promos too. It's I go, hey, I'm here, this is who I am, and then you go, oh, this, Rajan thinks that he's gonna do this, smash his painting over my head. Well, this is what I'm gonna do about that, and it's very simply that. And so that's like the general pattern. But how reality works is that for every generality, there needs to be the particular, right? These two things are united. I'm sitting in a chair. The chair it's generally a chair, but it's this particular chair. There's a chair that makes this unique as opposed to all the other chairs that there are. And so what ultimately to me makes wrestling interesting, it's the same, it's storytelling, and it's kind of the same thing, and kind of has been more or less for the last 100 years. I mean, you can put on different lighting and different different moves and things like that, but really ultimately it's like the characters that you put in the situation that makes the particular. It's the particular that makes the particular, which makes it unique, which makes it interesting. And it's finding a character that maps onto storytelling that is coherent and resonates with the audience in some way, that that's what you aim for, right? You aim for something that people go, yeah, that's like me. Yeah, that's, even if it's not even a conscious level, there's just something about it that you go, yes, this is right. Like, I'll see things in matches sometimes and I'll just go, do they not understand what wrestling is? Do they not understand like that's not what should have happened? Because that's not, look, there's different ways to skin a cat. I'm not saying there's only one way, but there's what storytelling is. There's what wrestling is. And you can't have just a bunch of random moves put together in the same way that if I tell you a story and I just tell you like just facts and that have no, like, we'll know when I'm telling a story that that's a proper story because it will be engaging. It's like, why is that engaging? Like, we don't know necessarily. Like, you don't know why you, like, to your question, like why you got into wrestling. It's like, you don't even exactly know, but there's something that is in resonance with your being in reality that connects you to people. So that's my long-winded way to answer your question about storytelling.
The storytelling. No, I mean, that was all really good information, and you really broke it down. Like, I'm curious off of that, because you mentioned the participants. Do you have like favorite stories you've seen told in wrestling? I'm sure there are a bunch, but can you name a few that you've seen over the years in wrestling that you feel like resonated with you?
I mean, Mick Foley was my guy. I mentioned the thing with sit down with Jim Ross because it was like, it's like, oh, that's me. That's like, that's what I do. That's and he's doing this, and he did it, but he does what I do. It's like the same sort of thing, and those emotional moments, like Mick Foley winning the title for the first time, and just that underdogness, and that resonated with me from my experience of reality.
Right.
Yeah, he was a good stand-in for what I wanted.
Rajan, do you have any thoughts on that, on the storytelling within your matches?
Yeah, it's like I 100% agree. Wrestling is like theater. It can take you on this like emotional roller coaster if you let it. And like one of the stories that like I really like, you said like the Mick Foley thing, is like I was in high school and I remember watching like the NXT takeovers, like the story of like Johnny Gargano and like Tomaso Ciampa. I was like hooked into it, and like that was the first time I remember like thinking like, wow, it feels like I'm watching like a movie and not a wrestling match, if that makes sense. I'm like, okay, I want my matches to like feel like this, like, because like that with that story, it was like so well told, and like everything they did in the matches like added to it. Like Gargano slowly like losing his like what's the word? Like not like persona, but like his like good guy persona. You know what I mean? Like as like Ciampa kept picking away, like he himself will like change slowly, and then like eventually, he like got back to it and like won the NXT title. But like, yeah, when I was in high school, like that story really like affected me on like an emotional level, and I really want stuff that like I do to like just like what Jimmy said, like a little bit like subconsciously like resonate with people. You know what I mean? Which is like why I do like to address like issues that like I have like in promos, like because I know like somebody else is probably feeling like that, right?
Jimmy, I want to go to you now. Something specific in your career, a story that you were in, obviously someone close with, was Seth Rollins, Tyler Black. I wanted to know if you had any thoughts about working with him like early on in your career, Age of the Fall, and if you knew he was going to be something big that we see now, like in WWE.
It's interesting because I didn't quite, you got to remember, like, this is like 2007, 2008. Like, there was such a gap between the independents, between Ring of Honor, even in TNA and WWE. It's not like it is now where it's like you sort of get over on the indies and just there's this like straight like conveyor belt that brings you into the W system. So it wasn't obvious what anybody's like upward mobility would be. CM Punk was like the first one in 2005, in my estimation, the first like sort of independent wrestling star, post WCW and ECW death, for WWE to go, okay, you did well here, let's see how you do here, with trepidation. And a few followed, but I had a premonition that it would continue that way, but it wasn't obvious. So I never remember it being in the front of my mind, like, oh, Seth Rollins is going to go be a big star in WWE, because those things just kind of, they weren't a given. Like it's kind of a given now that if someone, is like, oh, look, he's doing awesome on the indies and he looks like a Greek god, like that WB is going to take him. But back then it wasn't. But Seth was great, man. He was a nice, respectful young man, and he had his fingers sort of on the pulse of different parts of the culture that I didn't have at that point, which helped out the stories we were doing in Ring of Honor with the Age of the Fall. A lot of the sort of framing of things was his conceptualizations, and I appreciated from that. And he was super athletic and super talented, and we were still at the points of our career where I was able to help him out with what I knew, and he was able to do the workload in our tag team matches, and I still love Seth.
That's so cool to hear. Yeah. There's two other people I wanted to ask you about too. Two specific people that I've heard you have a great friendship with throughout your career, was Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, El Generico, and Steen. And I'm curious what it meant to you watching them in the main event of WrestleMania a few months back.
Yeah, I mean, it was super cool, man. It was. I was in a hotel in LA, and like I'm not watching WrestleMania, and like I think I got a text from someone saying, "Hey, Kevin and Sami are up last." I'm like, I popped open the computer. I think I subscribed to the network, and it's awesome. Like, what can you say about that? Like these two guys that just like started with each other, and they're in the main event of WrestleMania together, and they're the sort of unorthodox guys that they are. Like, they had a lot of detractors, right? Like, Kevin's not in shape, and Sami was El Generico mostly, which is kind of like a weird gimmick, but he's like really good. But you don't peg those guys necessarily, like, they're super talented, but you don't peg them for like, yeah, they're gonna main event at WrestleMania one day. And like, I was there the first time they wrestled each other WrestleMania in 2016 in that ladder match. Like, and it's like how freaking cool it was. And it's like, the last thing for them to do is main event WrestleMania against each other for the world title. Like, that's it. Like, that's the last. I mean, if they never make it there, that's fine. But like, what a thing! I was so You know, there's at my age, in wrestling, particularly, I guess. The, I don't say there's cynicism, but like you know, like I've seen it all mostly, and so nothing. There's not a ton that like grips me anymore, but that gripped me. That resonated to see, wow, like. And I was super proud of them, and I am friends with them. When you said, I hear you're good friends with, you know, two people, I don't know if I'm good friends with anybody. I don't know who are you gonna say, but yes, those two I am. Yeah, man, you've remained friends, and I'm blessed to have those two as friends.
No, that's really cool. And I love that you turned it right on. Yeah. And you're right. Like in this day and age, should have so many detractors. Like I feel like we heard that Vince wasn't like super in on tag team wrestling, like rumors, whatever that spread. And for that to main event to WrestleMania and them to be side by side, it was awesome. Do you think something like that would have happened if he wasn't like fully at the helm?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have any real insight on that. I don't know how much involvement he had on the decision making of, you know, who went last. You know, obviously, look, that was the hottest story of the year, and
absolutely, yeah.
Sami and the Usos, and you know, Kevin was in there as well, but you know, Sami probably in particular was like the golden touch of the whole thing. And again, not take away from the other guys, but yeah, I mean, it was the hottest thing that year. So you could make a case for that. Whether that was a Vince thumb, yeah,
who knows?
I don't know. I don't know if he was there or not. Yeah,
muddy waters around that time. Who knows?
Right.
But
about this, if Vince didn't want them to be in the main event, they would not have been in the main event.
That is a good way to phrase it. Yeah. And I could agree as a fan. Rajan, something cool I saw you were able to do was that you did extra work for WWE not too long ago too, right?
August of last year, I was so nervous driving to I did the SmackDown in Montreal and then the Raw in Toronto. So driving out to like Montreal, and like that was the first time back there, and then I was 19, so like fresh out of high school, and like seeing like the whole this is like it's not like any indie show I've ever been to, you know, I'll tell you that. But like it's like a whole production there. There's like a million people working there. And like as you're like an extra, so you like kind of like try to stay out of the way. Just like make eye contact with someone, like, no sir, no sir. And like catering's great, I remember that. So like that was like the Montreal and SmackDown, and like for like the Raw in Toronto, I remember I got stuck in traffic. So I was like 20 minutes late. I was like running around the arena in like a suit with like my suitcase, just like so scared that they're gonna be like, all right, out of here. And then I got there, I gave like my paperwork in, and like, oh sorry, and like he didn't care at all. And then I remember we were standing at ringside, and like they're going over the show, and Jason Jordan's like, you, yeah, okay, hop the guardrail, come here, you're gonna do a spot. Okay, sir. Like very gingerly hop the guardrail, like walk around quietly. I'm not supposed to be there. And there's like they had me. This is back when like Dexter Loomis was doing his whole like abducting people thing, like the hoodie. So like they had me in like a very baggy black hoodie, and like the spot was pretty much like AJ's on the guardrail. I pretty much give AJ like a very violent hug, and the security pulls me away. pull the hood off. It's not Dexter Loomis. Dexter Loomis is on the other side. He takes like Miz. I was just like a distraction. So I remember like my segment was around 9:40ish. So I was like sitting in catering, just eating on these cookies, watching the show, just so nervous, palms so sweaty, just waiting for my turn to be called up. Like thankfully I was wearing like a black baggy hoodie because I ate so much because I was so, I eat when I'm like a little nervous and stuff. But when it's time for the segment, they're like, all right, come on, live TV, go fast. Like walking to the seat, they have me sit out there. I'm like watching the match. It's like 5 minutes before it's like my like cue to attack them. And I'm just looking around at like the arena. There's like 20,000 people, like all just like reacting for their stuff they're doing. Like, whoa, this is like almost like gladiators fighting in a coliseum, you know? It's a wild feeling. It's a wild feeling, and sitting there like, okay, my cue's coming up, my cue's coming up, my cue's coming up. Put on very slowly, and then the producer dad next to me is like, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. Go, 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 go there, do the thing, and I got so scared because like the hood came off while I was like grabbing it. I'm like, oh no, the reveal's ruined. But then they had Jamie Noble there, so like they made me tie my hair back in like a man bun. It's like the first time I ever did that. There's like tutorials in the locker room on how to do that. So like instead, I kept my head down and he pulled me by the hair and like, oh, it's not Dexter. Dexter's over there, and the segment went fine, and I finally was able to just breathe and relax and take it all in. Like that was pretty cool, and it just put everything in perspective, like seeing like these like larger than life characters that like only existed to me at that point on TV in real life, and like really hammered in like, okay, like this is what wrestling is about. It's not about the actual like wrestling. It's about like these like characters that can like hook people into like the show. And it's a show because like there's like a rehearsal happening. I don't want to say too much. Like there's like a rehearsal happening, and like everyone's like wearing these like bright colors and like shiny gear. I'm like, okay, I think I understand wrestling a little bit better than I did before, which was like almost like a better thing than like the segment. The segment was cool. 100% the segment was cool. But like being back there and seeing how it operates, it's like a different type of education that I never really thought I would get so soon. And I'm very like grateful to be given that opportunity.
The WWE production's like wild, man. Like I'd done extra work plenty of times, and then even when I started working there as a writer, just like seeing that part of the process interlocked with all the other parts of the process, you go, what a machine this is. Like every week, what a machine, and things are happening like last minute, and it's live TV and that stuff. Like it's funny, you're nervous beforehand, but then like it happens in a second. It's just like you said, it's like wait, go, and it's like it happens, and then it's done, and you go, oh, that was it. And it's like that. It's like that every single week, and it's quite, yeah, it's quite the production. It's quite the experience, especially when you're younger. I remember my feelings, being like 21, like second time backstage, and I'm like, fake drinking coffee. Like I don't even drink coffee, just doing that just so I'm doing something because I felt like, well, I don't belong here. But you start to realize that like I remember those feelings too of like, oh, I'm gonna be late, I'm gonna be in trouble, everybody's watching what I'm doing, and it's like nobody's watching what the extras are doing. Like everybody's too busy just doing all the other stuff that they're doing because like there's so much to do at these shows. But it's a fun experience to be young and to like walk into that, and it's a fun experience if you're older too, man. It's a wild show.
I love the insight from like both generations too. And Jimmy, a question for you. So I mentioned at the beginning you worked everywhere. I feel like every major company right now you've had something in it, at least like your hands in it, whether people knew it or not. Like you said, leaders in those companies like the Scott D'Amores, Vince McMahon's, now Tony Khan. How would those leaders compare?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the culture is created from the top down, and everybody I've worked for has their own way of doing things and their own preferences and the things that they like, and how much creative freedom the talent has, and how on edge the talent are depending on like what the temperament is of the boss and things like that. Again, everybody's got their own one, and what I really learned working for Vince is like, well, it's his sandbox. I'm just playing in it, and I've adopted that everywhere I go, because as a performer, I see performers like this. It's like, people want things their way, and in life, it's like, oh, I want things to be my way. Why are we doing it like this? And it's like, yeah, because that's what the boss wants it. That's why we're doing things like this. Like if it was my show, you would do it like this. But since it's not my show, we're doing it like this. And learning to play within the box, that your job is not necessarily to just do the best thing possible. That's not your job. It's to do the best thing possible within the confines that you're given, because the confines that you're given have a larger context you have no idea about as a performer, generally speaking, the different things that, like, factors that go into play. So it's really something I've adopted. It's like, hey man, it's not my show, like, and that's okay. And I kind of don't want it to be my show. I don't want to be the head, the final call. I prefer. I see what it's like to have the final call. It's a lot. So I'll be one of the advisors to the king, and I will concede to the king's requests and do my job to the best of my abilities. And I think that's something, as a performer too, I struggled with a little more, but I always had that feeling that your job is to make the best out of what you're given. And guys that do that with a minimal, like a reasonable to no pushback, are guys I like to work with. Rajan, where are you at right now? Like, where do you work? Like, where do you live? Where do you work? Where'd you break in?
I'm in like Ontario, Canada. Not in Toronto, just like near Toronto, like just outside the city, like 30 minutes away. So like I wrestled in like Quebec a couple times. I have been to the States, not to wrestle, but I was fortunate enough to like train with TJ and Natty down in Florida 2 weeks. I haven't like wrestled on any indies there. I wrestled in like just around Ontario pretty much, and like a little bit in Quebec. But it's been like this past year where like my bookings have started to like pick up, because like I'm training for 2 years. First year is just like solid training, and then like you're greenlit, and then you start wrestling on the indies.
Where'd you train at?
I train at Battle Arts Academy with Santino Marella School.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Mississauga, yeah.
Yeah. So like that's cool. Santino, like he's been there, so like he like drops his like gems there in his class. It's always great. We have like 3 other coaches there too who are like really good. Yes, like I work around like the Toronto scene here and there in Quebec.
To hear your story, it's been great. Do you have any goals, like long-term or short-term, set up for your career that are on your radar?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely do want to like wrestle in the States, because like there's more eyes there than the Canadian wrestling scene, I feel. That's a thing I wanted to get done within like the next year. Wrestled more throughout Canada, like Winnipeg, Calgary, all that stuff. Also, just like it's a weird goal, but like I feel like every promo has to be better than the last. And I'd like not every promo is like this big thing, like multiple takes. Like sometimes I just do, like this one, like here's 45 seconds of me just talking, But like I do like to like make them like a little bit more like artsy and cinematic. So like I definitely want like, and I feel like my creative output this year has been like pretty good. Like I find like I'm like understanding what I want to be more. Like, I'll never fully understand, you know what I mean? Like, but like I'm understanding more what I want this character to be, how I want him to move, how I want him to talk. I definitely want to like expand on that and create something that's better than the last thing that people like, that I'm also like somewhat satisfied with, because I'm very harsh on myself. Like I can't watch any of my own matches back. I do watch it back to like critique stuff, but like it's a painful process. Promos are even worse. So just expand like the places I'm wrestling, and like just try to be better creatively. Long term is I mean, like obviously the goal is to like be like a full-time wrestler with like a contract and stuff. But like that's long term. I'm very like new into wrestling. I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. It would be nice, but like realistically, I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon. But like it would, like being a full-time wrestler, like get like wrestling, it makes me happy. Like I wouldn't be doing it if it didn't make me happy. And like having a budget for the stuff I want to do creatively would be nice. Cause like it's always like I'm asking my friends like, hey man, I need to borrow like a black curtain. Do you have one? No, okay. Call the next guy. Hey, do you have a black curtain I can borrow? Because like they're like $80 on Amazon. So like I do like, again, like not having a budget, like sorry, not like the low, not low production value, but like not having the money to spend and stuff does force you to be like more creative, I think. But like I do want to like create something that's a little bit more ambitious in the future. If you understand what I'm saying, it's hard for me to express these thoughts. And the artist is very much a gimmick, but like it's also like who I am. It's like it's hard for me to express these thoughts. Like I hope they translate clearly throughout this podcast, but art is like a way to get all that stuff out. So
The
there's my
character, yeah.
answer. I hope it makes sense.
No, I love how connected you are with your character. I think it's really cool to see, and I think it adds like a sense of authenticity for sure. Um, and Jimmy, for you, same question. Right now, you landed like we said at the top in AEW. Do you have any goals like set in your mind, or you're just really content, like you were saying, where you are right now, your current spot?
I'm just doing what I'm doing these days mostly. I I I see things sometimes that are in front of me that I would like to do, and then I move towards that. So there's not a huge overarching structure to it at this point. Maybe there should be, but it's more like what's in front of me. I go, oh, let me go play over there with those guys, and then play over there with this. So that's my way of navigating my life these days.
It's gotten you to a good spot. And do you have any lasting advice for Rajan as he continues his journey?
It sounds like you have a good head on your shoulders, and you've got some good insight. And things you're saying some things that I certainly agree with. Which probably puts you ahead of most people I hear talk. So good on you, man. I would say just keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's really the key to, at least in my experience, man. It's the key to all of it. It's just, for so long in my career, it was like work anytime, any place, anywhere for any amount of money, because it's like, well, they're not even, they're only paying me $20. I want $40. It's like, who cares about $20? Who cares about a $20 difference? Like, this point in your career it's an investment. It's an invest. Like, don't care about the $20. Care about the 20,000, the 200,000, the 2 million. Like, that's what you're aiming towards, not nickel and diming over here, because it's the experience of performing and working in front of different audiences and honing your craft that gives you the experience to be able to start to play with on bigger stages and bigger money. I mean, that's what we've seen. I mean, I'm just saying what it looks like to me when I see guys, when they come to AEW or WWE, the greatest asset that they can have is their ability to understand how to work in front of any audience, like understand their own stuff, like know who they are. And to me, that comes with repetition. And while being in Canada, yeah, it can sort of cut you off from the United States. You can, on some level. There are opportunities there. I know there are good places, in Toronto to work. I was just talking to Chris Chambers, who does like Super Kicked right there, which is a pretty big thing. My buddy Danny Duggan does like long tours in Western Canada that I just love. Like, if you want to just like just wrestle every day and just like have, not make almost any money, but just like wrestle every day. It's like there's opportunities there. There's opportunity overseas, but it's just put one foot in front of the other. And as long as you're on, when you put one foot in front of the other, you're on this like an upward trajectory, even if the slope isn't that high, but even if it's here, like eventually you make it to the level you want to get to, even if it's slow. As long as you're going upwards, yeah, you'll get there, and there's nothing to worry about. And as long as you're examining how things are working for you, look, if you keep putting one foot in front of the other and you're just not getting anywhere, it's just this sort of I've plateaued. Like, that's an invitation to re-examine sort of what you're doing and how you're doing it. But if you're going up, like however slowly, that's the direction you want to go. So enjoy the moment, enjoy the ride. It's just a ride anyway.
Hey man, yeah, that's great advice. Like, this has been like super educational. Like, I'm gonna watch this back like with the notebook. I'm joking on the short number. Like, gotta watch this back with like the notebook and like fully like really like break down everything you said because like it's been great advice and like thank you Jonah for like doing this. I'm looking forward to this for like a while, so like, I'm glad it actually happened.
Rewind, recap, relive for over 50 episodes. The revolutionary force in wrestling interviews.